They say blood is thicker than water, but apparently, it's not thicker than $850,000. My sister forged my signature to sell our childhood home, the one place where Mom's lavender still grows by the kitchen window, where Dad's initials are still carved into the garage workbench. She thought being executor meant she could erase me from the family legacy with a fake notary stamp. What she didn't know. I've been a licensed notary public for 12 years, and I know exactly what makes a forged document invalid. My name is Isabella Sullivan. If you're watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you're watching from, especially if you've ever had family betray your trust over money. This is the story of how I sat in a room full of relatives while my sister handed me a check for my share, and I handed her something that changed everything. It started 6 months ago when we lost both our parents within half a year of each other. Dad went first, a sudden heart attack in his workshop. Mom followed 6 months later, and I think she simply didn't want to be here without him. They'd been married 43 years. The reading of the will was straightforward enough. Everything was to be split equally between Victoria, James, and me. But Victoria, being the eldest and a real estate agent, was named executor. At the time, it made sense. She understood property values, knew the market, had the connections. What could go wrong? The house is worth at least $850,000 in this market, Victoria announced at our first family meeting, exactly 90 days after Mom's funeral, the legal minimum wait time, I noticed. We could each walk away with over $250,000 after taxes and fees. James, our younger brother, nodded from his corner of Mom's dining room table. He's an engineer, practical like Victoria, but I looked around at the crown molding Dad installed himself, the kitchen where Mom taught us to make her famous apple pie, the backyard where we'd built that terrible treehouse that somehow still stands. I want to keep it, I said quietly. I'll buy you both out over time. Victoria's laugh was sharp. With what money, Isabella? Your notary salary? Be realistic. This is our childhood home. This is an asset, she interrupted, already pulling out her phone. I've actually had some interested buyers reach out. Cash offers, no contingencies. The way she said actually made my stomach turn. How long had she been planning this? Mom's lavender was still blooming outside, and Victoria was already counting commission. Let's at least think about it, I suggested. But Victoria was already scheduling showings. 2 weeks later, Victoria called another meeting. This time, she came prepared with folders, market analyses, and that patronizing smile she'd perfected in her 20 years of real estate. Isabella, you're being emotional about this, she said, sliding papers across Mom's table. Look at these comps. We're sitting on a gold mine. The market won't stay this hot forever. It's not about the money. Everything is about money when you don't have it. Marcus, her husband, interjected from behind her. He'd been silent until now, but something in his tone made me look closer. Dark circles under his eyes, jaw clenched. Some of us have real obligations. Victoria touched his arm. A warning or comfort, I couldn't tell. What Marcus means is, we all have different financial situations. You're single, renting that tiny apartment. This money could change your life. This house is my life, I shot back. Mom is gone. Victoria's voice was ice. And I'm the executor. I have a fiduciary duty to maximize the estate's value for all beneficiaries. You mean you have a buyer already? It wasn't a question. The way she wouldn't meet my eyes told me everything. I might have had some preliminary discussions, she admitted. A lovely family from California. Cash offer, 40-day close. James shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should vote? There's no voting, Victoria said firmly. As executor, I have the authority to make decisions in the estate's best interest. I'm trying to include you both as a courtesy. I stood up, my hands shaking. This is family, not a transaction. You're being unrealistic, Isabella, as always. She gathered her folders. The showing is next Tuesday. I suggest you start looking at apartments to buy. But something in her eagerness felt wrong. Why was she pushing so hard, so fast? 3 days after that meeting, I received an email that made my blood run cold. It was from First National Title Company, confirming that my signature had been verified on preliminary sale documents. I stared at the screen. I hadn't signed anything. My hands trembled as I called Victoria. "Why is the title company saying they have my signature?" "Oh, that." Her voice was too casual. "Just routine paperwork. Executor stuff. You know how these things go." "No, I don't know. What did you sign with my name?" "I didn't sign anything with your name. Don't be so paranoid. It's probably just them updating their records, making sure all heirs are accounted for." But after we hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling. I'd been a notary too long to ignore my instincts about document fraud. That afternoon, I did something I'd never thought I'd need to do. I searched public records for our property. The listing was active, posted 5 days ago, before our last meeting. My heart pounded as I read the details. Executor has full authority to complete sale. All heirs have been notified and consent obtained. Consent obtained? I called James immediately. "Did you sign anything for Victoria about the house?" "No." "Wait, she had me sign some estate inventory forms last week. Why? What did they look like?" "I don't know, Isabella. Regular forms. She said it was for tax purposes." I pulled up the county recorder's website, my notary credentials giving me access to pending transactions. There it was, a purchase agreement dated last week. 3 signatures at the bottom: Victoria Sullivan Hayes, James Sullivan, and Isabella Sullivan. The signature next to my name was close, but not quite right. The I was too looped, the S too sharp. Someone had forged my signature, and I knew exactly who. I drove straight to Victoria's house, my laptop bag heavy with printed evidence. She answered the door in her perfect suburban uniform, yoga pants and a wine glass at 2 p.m. "Isabella, what are you—" "You forged my signature." I pushed past her into the living room, where Marcus sat hunched over his laptop, multiple betting sites open on the screen. He slammed it shut, but not before I saw the red numbers. Victoria's face cycled through emotions: surprise, anger, then that practiced real estate smile. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "This purchase agreement." I held up the printout. "That's not my signature. As executor, I have signing authority. Not to forge my name. This is fraud, Victoria. Criminal fraud." Marcus stood up, his face flushed. "You need to leave, now." "Is this why you're pushing so hard?" I looked between them. "What do you owe, Marcus? How much?" "Get out!" He stepped toward me, but Victoria grabbed his arm. "Marcus, stop!" She turned to me, her mask finally slipping. "Isabella, you don't understand the pressure we're under. The market is perfect right now. If you wait, what? Your creditors come calling?" "Some of us have real obligations," Marcus spat. "Mortgages, business loans. Not everyone can float through life playing with stamps and seals." "Those stamps and seals mean I know exactly how illegal this is," I said quietly. "That signature was notarized by someone in Jefferson County. I've never been to Jefferson County." Victoria went pale. "You're overreacting. It's just paperwork. The sale isn't even final." "Then tear it up." I can't. The buyer's already wired the earnest money." My heart sank. "How much?" 50,000. She'd already spent it. I could see it in her eyes. My sister had sold our childhood home to cover her husband's gambling debts. That night, I put my 12 years as a notary to work. Every document has a trail, especially when someone's sloppy enough to forge signatures. I started with the notary who'd supposedly witnessed my signature. The name was Bradley Morrison, commission number 2019-4847, Jefferson County. A quick search in the state database showed his license was active, but something felt off. His commission had been suspended twice before, both times for improper notarization. I dug deeper. Bradley Morrison had a Facebook page, barely used, but there was enough. Photos from a barbecue last summer. And there, in the background, raising a beer with his arm around Morrison's shoulder. Marcus. My stomach churned. This wasn't just Victoria acting desperately. This was planned. I called my friend Sarah, who worked at the state notary division. Can you pull the notary journal entries for Bradley Morrison, last 2 weeks? That's technically public record, but why? Please, Sarah, it's important. An hour later, she called back. This is weird, Bella. Morrison notarized 3 documents for your family estate on the same day, but the journal shows different locations for each, one at his office, one at a Starbucks, and one at your sister's house? He came to Victoria's house? According to his journal. But here's the strange part. The timestamp shows all 3 were done within 30 minutes. Physically impossible, unless he has a teleporter. I saved everything. Screenshots, database records, journal entries. Then I found something else. Morrison had notarized documents for 4 other estate sales in the last year. All involved one heir claiming others had agreed to sell. All involved Victoria as the listing agent. My sister wasn't just desperate. She was running a scam. And I had the proof. The signature was notarized by someone I'd never heard of, in a county I'd never been to. Monday morning, Victoria called a family meeting at her office. When I walked in, she was sitting behind her desk like a queen on her throne, a single check placed precisely in front of her. It's done, she announced before I could even sit down. The house sold. Closing is in 2 weeks. What? James looked stunned. But Isabella didn't agree. Isabella's signature is on all the necessary documents, Victoria said smoothly. The buyers paid cash, $850,000. You can't do this, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. It's already done. She pushed the check across the desk toward me. $425,000. Your half after James gets his portion. More than fair considering I did all the work. I'm not taking that. Then you get nothing. She pulled out another document. Sign this quitclaim deed, take your money, and we can all move on with our lives. I looked at the check. My name was printed on it. The amount was life-changing. But all I could think about was Mom's lavender, Dad's workbench, the height marks on the kitchen door frame that tracked our childhood. The buyers already started planning renovations, Victoria continued. They're going to gut the kitchen, take down Dad's workshop for a pool. It's going to be beautiful. You told them they could destroy Dad's workshop? It's not ours anymore, Isabella. Her voice was cold, final. The house is sold. Sign this, or you get nothing. Marcus stood behind her, arms crossed, trying to look intimidating, but I saw the relief in his eyes. Their debts would be paid. I need time to think, I said, standing. You have 48 hours, Victoria said. Then I file papers to remove you as a beneficiary for obstruction. She had no idea what papers I'd be filing first. If you've ever felt powerless when family takes advantage of your trust, type boundaries in the comments. This story is about to take a turn that proves why documentation matters. Before we continue, please hit subscribe if you believe in standing up for what's right, even against family. Now let me tell you what I discovered that changed everything. That night, I stayed up until 3 a.m. building my case. As a notary, I knew the laws, but this required precision. Forgery in real estate transactions is a Class C felony in our state, up to 10 years in prison. Add wire fraud because the buyers transferred funds across state lines, and we're talking federal charges. The fake notarization alone carried up to 5 years. I organized everything methodically. Morrison's journal inconsistencies, the Facebook connection to Marcus, the pattern of similar estate sales, screenshots showing the listing went live before I supposedly consented. Each piece alone might be explained away, but together, they painted a picture of deliberate fraud. I also discovered something that made my hands shake with anger. In the purchase agreement, there was a clause stating that all heirs had been given adequate opportunity to review and obtain independent counsel. The date listed for my supposed review? I'd been at a notary conference in Denver with hundreds of witnesses and a paper trail. But the real smoking gun was Morrison himself. His notary bond had claims against it. Two previous victims who'd discovered their signatures were forged on property deeds. Both cases were still under investigation. I compiled everything into a formal complaint for the State Notary Division, the Real Estate Commission, and the Attorney General's office. 15 pages of evidence, each document carefully labeled and referenced. Then I found one more thing that made me smile grimly. The California buyers. They'd included a contingency clause. If any fraud was discovered in the sale process, they could withdraw and recover their earnest money plus damages. Victoria thought she was saving herself and Marcus. Instead, she'd potentially cost them everything. Forgery in real estate is a Class C felony, up to 10 years in prison, and I had all the evidence needed to prove it. The next morning, I drove to Aunt Dorothy's house. She'd been Mom's older sister, a retired teacher who still had the sharpest mind in the family. "Isabella, honey, you look exhausted." She ushered me in, already making tea. I laid out everything. The forged signature, Morrison's connection to Marcus, the pattern of fraud. Dorothy listened without interrupting, her expression growing darker with each revelation. "Your mother worried about this," she said finally. "Not the fraud specifically, but Victoria's flexibility with ethics." "What do you mean?" "Before she passed, your mother told me to watch out for the house. She said Victoria had been asking questions about the estate, about executor powers. She wanted you to have the house, Isabella. She told me that explicitly." "Why didn't she put it in the will?" "She tried to add a codicil, but—" Dorothy sighed. "She got too sick too fast. But I was there, honey. I heard her say it." That afternoon, James came by my apartment. "Victoria called. She says you're being difficult about the sale." I showed him the evidence. His engineer's mind processed it methodically, and I watched his face change from skepticism to shock to anger. "She forged your signature? And possibly yours. Check your copy of those tax forms she had you sign." He pulled them up on his phone, zooming in. This isn't what I signed. The second page is different." "She swapped them out." "But why would she—" He stopped. "Marcus. It's Marcus, isn't it? The gambling?" I nodded. "Dorothy says Mom wanted me to have the house. Will you support me at the family meeting?" James was quiet for a long moment. "Yes, this isn't right. Mom and Dad would be horrified." Two allies. It was a start. That evening, Sarah from the State Notary Division called with urgent news. "Isabella, you need to know something. We just got another complaint about Bradley Morrison, a family in Riverside. Same pattern, forged signature on an estate sale, one sibling claiming the others agreed." "Who was the listing agent?" "Your sister." My heart sank. How many times has this happened? "We're investigating 4 cases now, possibly more. Morrison's license was suspended this afternoon, pending criminal investigation. Isabella, the investigator wants to talk to you, tomorrow." After we hung up, I searched for the Riverside family. Found them on social media, their story eerily familiar. An elderly parent's house sold without one daughter's consent. The daughter who'd objected was painted as greedy, unrealistic, emotional. Just like me. I messaged her. Within an hour, we were on the phone. "She was so convincing," the woman Linda told me. "My brother believed Victoria when she said I'd signed. By the time I proved I hadn't, the house was gone. New owners had already moved in." "What happened to the sale?" "It's in litigation. Has been for 8 months. The buyers are suing everyone. My brother, Victoria, the title company. My brother and I don't speak anymore." "I'm so sorry." "Stop her," Linda said fiercely. "Whatever it takes, stop her before she destroys another family." After the call, I found 2 more victims online. Same story, same devastation. Victoria and Morrison had been running this scam for at least 18 months. But they'd gotten sloppy with me. They'd forgotten I wasn't just another grieving family member. I was a notary who knew exactly how to document fraud. The notary's license had been suspended twice before, for fraud, and my sister had used him 4 times. The next morning, Victoria struck back. She'd called an emergency family meeting, not just immediate family, but cousins, aunts, everyone. The email subject line: urgent, Isabella's obstruction of estate settlement. I walked into her conference room to find 12 family members already seated, looking confused and uncomfortable. Victoria stood at the head of the table, playing the martyred executor perfectly. "Thank you all for coming," she began, voice laden with false concern. "I'm afraid Isabella's emotional attachment to the house is preventing the estate from closing. This affects all of you, as the delays are costing thousands in maintenance, taxes, and insurance." "That's not—" I started. "Please, let me finish." She pulled up a presentation. "The buyers have been incredibly patient, but they're threatening to walk. If that happens, we could lose over 100,000 in this market." Cousin Michael spoke up. "Isabella, why won't you just sign? It's a lot of money." "Because I never agreed to sell?" "She did agree," Victoria interrupted smoothly. "I have her signature right here. Now she's having seller's remorse." "That's not my signature," I said clearly. The room went quiet. Victoria's smile tightened. "Are you accusing me of something?" "I'm stating a fact." Marcus leaned forward. "You're destroying this family over your selfishness. Your parents would be ashamed." "Don't you dare!" "The buyers are good people," Victoria continued, ignoring me. "They have 3 kids. They've already enrolled them in schools here. Isabella would make this family homeless because she can't let go of the past." The emotional manipulation was masterful. I saw several relatives shifting uncomfortably, looking at me with disappointment. 48 hours, Victoria announced. Then I file for emergency executor powers to override any obstruction. I'm trying to protect everyone's interests here. She had no idea what was coming in 24 hours. After the ambush meeting, I met with State Investigator David Park at a quiet coffee shop downtown. He was younger than I expected, but his eyes were sharp, taking in every detail. "Ms. Sullivan, I've reviewed your complaint. The evidence is compelling, but I need you to understand, once we open a formal investigation, there's no going back." "I understand. Your sister will likely face criminal charges. Morrison already has. He was arrested this morning." My heart stopped. "Arrested?" "He tried to destroy evidence once he learned about the investigation. That upgraded things significantly." Park leaned forward. "He's also talking. Says your sister and her husband orchestrated everything." "Will you be at the family meeting tomorrow?" "If you're willing to wear a wire." I stared at him. "You want me to record my own sister?" "We want to prevent more families from being destroyed. Your sister has done this at least 6 times that we know of. The Riverside family lost everything. The siblings haven't spoken in 2 years." I thought about Linda's broken voice, about the other victims, about Mom's lavender garden about to be destroyed. "I'll do it." That afternoon, I filed the formal complaint with the State Notary Division, case number 2024-789-NC. At 4:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the office closed, it was officially on record. Then I called Robert Smith, the family lawyer Victoria had chosen for tomorrow's meeting. "Mr. Smith, I'll be bringing documentation tomorrow that may affect the estate settlement." "What kind of documentation?" "Evidence of fraud in the sale of the house." His silence was telling. "I see. Thank you for the heads up, Ms. Sullivan." Tomorrow, everything would change. I spent the evening organizing my evidence, my hands steady for the first time in weeks. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Victoria's face from when we were kids. The sister who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd held me when our goldfish died, who'd promised we'd always protect each other. At 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. An email from Investigator Park. "Final prep at 7 a.m. Don't respond to any family contact until after the meeting. Morrison has provided additional evidence." At 3 a.m., another email, this one from the California buyer's attorney. We've been made aware of potential irregularities in this transaction. Please contact us immediately. At 4 a.m., James texted, Can't sleep either, I'm with you. Mom would want us to do the right thing. At 5 a.m., I gave up on sleep and reviewed everything one last time. The forged signatures, Morrison's fraudulent notarizations, the pattern of estate fraud, Victoria's name on every transaction. I pulled out the one document I hadn't shown anyone yet, a printout from Victoria's real estate account showing her commission statements. She'd made over $200,000 from the suspicious estate sales. But the money was gone, transferred immediately to accounts in Marcus's name. Gambling debts, I assumed, though the investigation would confirm it. At 6 a.m., I stood in my kitchen, looking at a photo of our family from last Christmas. Mom was still alive, Dad's chair notably empty. Victoria had her arm around me, both of us smiling. Marcus stood apart, checking his phone even in the photo. How had we gotten here? At 6:45 a.m., I put on my most professional outfit, the one I wore for important notarizations. Navy suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. I looked like what I was, a professional who knew the law. The investigator's email had been brief but clear. I'll be there, don't mention me. The law offices of Robert Smith and Associates occupied the top floor of a downtown high-rise. I arrived to find the conference room already filling up. 12 family members, just as Victoria had orchestrated. She wanted witnesses to my unreasonable behavior. Victoria sat at the head of the polished table like she'd already won, designer suit impeccable, folders arranged precisely in front of her. Marcus flanked her left, trying to look imposing but sweating despite the air conditioning. Isabella, so glad you could make it, Victoria said, her tone suggesting the opposite. Please, sit down so we can resolve this unfortunate situation. I took the seat directly across from her, placing my single folder on the table. James sat beside me, and I noticed Aunt Dorothy had positioned herself where she could see everyone's faces. Robert Smith cleared his throat. We're here to finalize the estate distribution. Victoria, as executor, has prepared the closing documents. Thank you, Robert. Victoria opened her top folder with theatrical precision. As everyone knows, the house has been sold for $850,000. After expenses and taxes, each heir receives approximately $425,000. She pulled out 3 checks, fanning them on the table like playing cards. James has already agreed to the sale. Isabella is the only holdout. That's not, James started, but Victoria cut him off. Here's your check, James. She slid it across to him. And Isabella. She held up mine, my name printed clearly on it. $425,000. All you have to do is sign the quitclaim deed. The room was silent, everyone watching. Victoria had staged this perfectly. The money on display, family pressure mounting, nowhere for me to run. She pushed the check across the table with a smile. Take it, Isabella. Don't destroy our family over sentiment. Victoria stood, clicking a remote to display a presentation on the wall screen. Let me show everyone exactly what Isabella is costing this family. The first slide showed the house, our house, with a bold sold banner across it. $850,000. Cash offer, no contingencies. The buyers have already invested $12,000 in inspections and plans. Click. Photos of a beautiful family appeared. The Johnsons, 3 children under 10. They've sold their home in California to move here. The youngest has special needs. They chose this house because it's perfect for her wheelchair access. Several relatives shifted uncomfortably. Cousin Marie whispered, Isabella, think of that poor child. Click. A spreadsheet appeared. Every day of delay costs us $500 in carrying costs, insurance, utilities, property taxes. That's $15,000 a month coming out of your inheritance. But more importantly, Victoria continued, her voice dropping to sound concerned, the emotional toll on our family. Mom and Dad would be heartbroken seeing us fight like this. Marcus stood up. My wife has worked tirelessly as executor, managing everything while grieving her parents. And this is how Isabella repays her, with baseless accusations and obstruction. Baseless? I said quietly. Yes, baseless, Victoria snapped. I have your signature right here. She pulled out the purchase agreement, holding it up. You agreed to this sale on October 15th. I was in Denver on October 15th. No, you. She paused, consulting her papers. That must be a mistake. It's not a mistake. I remained seated, calm. I was at the National Notary Association conference. 500 witnesses. The room grew tense. Victoria's smile flickered but held. Regardless, your signature is valid and notarized. Here's your check, more than fair. She slid the check across the table one more time, and I finally made my move. I didn't touch the check. Instead, I pulled a single document from my folder and slid it across the table toward Victoria. What's this? Her voice was still confident, but I saw her hand tremble as she picked it up. A formal complaint filed with the State Notary Division yesterday at 4:47 p.m., case number 2024-789-NC. The room went absolutely silent. Victoria's face drained of color as she read. This is ridiculous, she stammered. Is it? I stood, pulling out more documents. This is my actual signature. I placed it on the table. And this is the signature on your purchase agreement. I placed them side by side. Anyone can see they're different. Aunt Dorothy leaned forward, examining them. My God, they're completely different. But it was notarized, Victoria started. By Bradley Morrison. I pulled out his photo with Marcus, your husband's friend, whose notary license was suspended yesterday for fraud. He's currently in custody. Marcus shot to his feet. You don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I turned to address the room. Bradley Morrison notarized my signature on October 15th. He claims in his journal that I appeared before him in Jefferson County. I've never been to Jefferson County. I was in Denver at a conference with 500 other notaries. I pulled out the conference program with my name listed as an attendee, my hotel receipt, photos from the event. This is insane, Victoria said, but her voice cracked. What's insane is that you've done this before. I spread out the other cases. The Riverside family, the Pattersons, the Nguyens, all estate sales where one sibling supposedly agreed to sell. All notarized by Morrison, all listed by you. James stood up slowly. Victoria, is this true? Of course not. Isabella is having some kind of breakdown. Then you won't mind if we verify the signature? Robert Smith, the lawyer, had gone pale. As the attorney overseeing this estate, I'm obligated to investigate any claims of fraud. This is a witch hunt. Marcus moved toward the door. We're leaving. I wouldn't do that, I said quietly. The state investigator specifically said everyone should remain until he's done documenting the evidence. What investigator? Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. The door opened, and Investigator David Park walked in, badge visible. That would be me. Good morning. I'm Investigator David Park with the State Attorney General's Office, Financial Fraud Division. He placed his credentials on the table. Nobody leaves until I've documented everything. Marcus tried to push past him. You can't keep us here. Sir, sit down. Now. Park's voice brooked no argument. This is now a criminal investigation into interstate wire fraud, forgery, and conspiracy. Victoria collapsed into her chair. I want a lawyer. You have that right, but right now I need all documents related to this estate sale. Park turned to Robert Smith. Counselor, I'll need your complete file. Of course. Smith was already gathering papers, his face ashen. I had no knowledge of any fraudulent activity. We'll determine that. Park pulled out an evidence bag. Ms. Sullivan Hayes, I need the original purchase agreement. Victoria's hands shook as she slid it across the table. Park examined it with a practiced eye, then pulled out a portable scanner. For the record, multiple family members are witnessing this documentation. He looked around the room. Has anyone else here signed documents for Mrs. Sullivan Hayes regarding estate sales? Cousin Michael raised his hand slowly. She helped with my mom's estate last year, said she could expedite everything. I'll need to speak with you separately. Park made a note. Ms. Isabella Sullivan, you indicated Morrison has been arrested? That's what you told me this morning. Correct. Mr. Morrison was taken into custody at 6 a.m. He's been very cooperative. Park looked directly at Marcus. He's provided extensive documentation about who hired him to forge signatures. Marcus's face went gray. I want a lawyer, too. That's your right. Park continued scanning documents. This is now a criminal investigation. The sale of the house is hereby frozen pending investigation. Victoria let out a sob. The check she'd pushed toward me sat untouched on the table, now evidence in a fraud case. Did Victoria really think she could get away with this? If you're feeling that justice is about to be served, hit the like button right now. And if you've ever had to stand up to a family bully, share your story in the comments. Make sure you're subscribed because what happens next proves why you should never underestimate the emotional family member. Victoria tried one last desperate play. This is all a misunderstanding. Isabella's always been jealous of my success. She's making this up because Mrs. Sullivan Hayes, Investigator Park interrupted. Bradley Morrison has already provided a sworn statement. He's documented every forged signature, including who paid him and how much. How much did you pay him, Victoria? I asked quietly. She wouldn't look at me. Marcus answered instead, throwing his wife under the bus without hesitation. 5,000 per signature. But it was all her idea. She said it was just paperwork, that the families would thank us later when they got their money. Marcus, Victoria gasped. I'm not going to prison for you. He turned to Park. I'll tell you everything. The gambling debts were mine, yes, but the fraud was all Victoria. She had access to the estates. She knew which families were vulnerable. You pathetic, Victoria started. The Riverside family, Marcus continued, panic making him talk faster. The daughter was a teacher. Victoria said she'd never have money to fight it. The Nguyen's had a language barrier. She picked them specifically. Aunt Dorothy stood up, her teacher's authority filling the room. Victoria Sullivan Hayes, you disgust me. Your parents would be ashamed. Don't you dare! Your mother worried about this, Dorothy continued. She told me before she died that she wanted Isabella to have the house because she knew Isabella would preserve it, not sell it for greed. That's not legally binding, Victoria said weakly. No, but it's morally clear. James finally spoke up. You forged our sister's signature. You stole from our family. You destroyed Mom and Dad's legacy for gambling debts. Victoria looked around the room for support and found none. Even Marcus had abandoned her. She was alone at the head of the table, no longer the queen, but the criminal. The family's reaction was swift and unanimous. Cousin Marie, who'd initially pressured me to sign, was the first to speak. Isabella, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Victoria made it sound like you were being unreasonable. She's a master manipulator, Michael added, anger clear in his voice. She did the same with my mom's estate, made me feel guilty for asking questions. James moved to sit beside me, a clear choice of sides. I should have listened to you from the start. When you said something felt wrong, I dismissed it as grief. We all did, Aunt Dorothy said. Victoria used our trust against us. Even relatives who rarely spoke at family gatherings were vocal now. Uncle Robert, Dad's brother, stood up slowly. That house has been in our family for 60 years. Your grandparents bought it when they immigrated here, and you tried to steal it? Victoria attempted damage control. The house would have been gone anyway. The market— Stop talking, Dorothy commanded. Every word you say makes this worse. The investigator continued documenting while the family processed the betrayal. Phone cameras came out as people photographed the evidence I'd laid on the table. This is going on Facebook, Cousin Sarah announced. Everyone needs to know what you did. Please, Victoria begged, think of my children. You should have thought of them before you became a felon, James said coldly. How are you going to explain to them why Mommy lost her real estate license? Why Daddy's in jail? Marcus had retreated to a corner, frantically texting what I assumed was his lawyer. The power couple who'd walked in so confident were now pariahs. "We're done here as a family," Dorothy announced. "Victoria, you're no longer welcome at family gatherings. Your parents' graves deserve better than a daughter who'd sell their memory for money." Robert Smith, who'd been silent since the investigator arrived, finally cleared his throat. "As the attorney of record for this estate, I need to make several things clear." He stood, his professional composure barely masking his shock. "First, the sale to the Johnson family is null and void. A transaction based on forged documents has no legal standing." "But they already paid," Victoria started. "The buyers will recover their earnest money and can pursue civil damages," Smith continued. "Second, this constitutes wire fraud across state lines, making it a federal offense. The FBI will likely be involved." "Federal?" Marcus's voice cracked. "The buyers wired funds from California. That makes it interstate commerce." Smith pulled out his phone. "I'm obligated to report this to the State Bar Association immediately. Mrs. Sullivan Hayes, your real estate license will be suspended pending investigation." "You can't—" "It's not discretionary. Any licensed professional involved in fraud loses their credentials." He turned to me. "Ms. Sullivan, as the wronged party, you have grounds for both criminal complaints and civil action." "I just want the house back," I said simply. "That will happen. Judge Martinez will issue an emergency injunction today." Smith was already typing on his phone. "The title will revert to the estate immediately." Investigator Park added, "The criminal investigation will proceed regardless. We have 6 families who've come forward so far. This appears to be an organized scheme spanning 18 months. 18 months of fraud," Smith said, shaking his head. "Mrs. Sullivan Hayes, Mr. Hayes, I strongly advise you to seek criminal defense attorneys immediately. This is far beyond an estate dispute." Victoria slumped in her chair, the reality finally hitting her. She'd lost everything: her license, her reputation, her freedom potentially, all for money that was already gone, fed into Marcus's gambling addiction. As people began to leave, Victoria grabbed my arm. Her perfect makeup was streaked with tears, her carefully styled hair disheveled. "Isabella, please, we're sisters. Remember when we were kids? Remember how I protected you from bullies? How I taught you to drive?" I gently removed her hand. "I remember. I also remember Mom trusting you to handle her final wishes." "I was desperate. You don't understand the pressure. Marcus owes dangerous people. They threatened our kids." "Then you should have asked for help, not committed fraud." "Please." She was sobbing now, all pretense gone. "Don't let them arrest me. My children, they're innocent. They need their mother. They need a mother who teaches them right from wrong." "You're so self-righteous." Her tears turned to anger. "You've always been the favorite, the baby, the one who could do no wrong. Mom wanted you to have the house. Of course she did." "This isn't about favoritism. This is about you forging my signature. It's just paper, just bureaucracy. We're family. That should matter more than documents." "Family?" I laughed bitterly. "You told a room full of people I was emotionally unstable. You tried to steal my inheritance. You committed crimes using my name." "I'll make it right," she pleaded. "I'll give you my share, all of it. Just drop the charges." "It's too late for that. Other families are involved. The investigator has Morrison's testimony. This is bigger than us now." She fell to her knees, grabbing my hand. "Please, Isabella, we're sisters." I looked down at her, this woman who'd taught me to ride a bike, who'd held me during thunderstorms, who'd become a stranger consumed by greed. "You committed fraud," I said firmly. "Face the consequences." I helped Victoria to a chair, maintaining dignity even as she fell apart. The room had mostly emptied, but James, Dorothy, and the investigator remained. Victoria, I said calmly, I'm going to be very clear about what happens next. I will cooperate fully with the investigation. I will testify truthfully. And I will pursue the return of our family home. You're destroying me, she whispered. No, you destroyed yourself. But I'm not going to be cruel about it. I sat across from her. I won't go to the media. I won't pursue additional civil damages beyond recovering the house, and I'll make sure your children know this isn't their fault. That's more than she deserves, James muttered. It's what Mom would want, I replied. Accountability, not vengeance. Victoria looked up, mascara stained and broken. What am I supposed to do? I'll lose my license? No one will hire me. You'll figure it out. People rebuild after mistakes. I pulled out my business card. When you're ready to make real amends, not to avoid consequences, but to actually repair the harm you've caused, call me. You'd forgive me? Someday, maybe. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and it doesn't mean avoiding justice. Investigator Park stepped forward. Mrs. Sullivan Hayes, you'll need to come with me for formal questioning. As he led her out, Victoria turned back one last time. I'm sorry, Isabella. I know, I said, but sorry doesn't undo fraud. The door closed behind them. Dorothy put her arm around me. You handled that with more grace than I would have. Mom taught us to be better than our worst moments, I said, even if Victoria forgot that lesson. James nodded. You're the executor now. The house is yours to protect. Not mine, I corrected. Ours. Family legacy, preserved properly this time. By 5 p.m. that day, the dominoes were falling faster than anyone could have imagined. The State Real Estate Commission issued an emergency suspension of Victoria's license. The email came while I was still at the lawyer's office, and Robert Smith read it aloud. Pending investigation into multiple instances of fraud, forgery, and breach of fiduciary duty. The California buyers were notified immediately. Their attorney's response was swift and brutal. They would pursue full damages plus punitive awards. Their email specifically mentioned emotional distress caused by fraudulent misrepresentation. James forwarded me a link that evening. Someone had already posted about the investigation on the local real estate Facebook group. Comments poured in from other agents who'd suspected something was off about Victoria's estate sales. She always pushed for quick cash sales, one wrote. Red flag in hindsight. Morrison's arrest made the evening news. Local notary arrested in multifamily estate fraud scheme. They didn't name Victoria yet, but anyone who knew our family could connect the dots. By 8 p.m., 3 more families had contacted Investigator Park. Each story was similar. A sudden estate sale, one family member claiming others had agreed, Morrison's suspicious notarization. Marcus's gambling connections apparently saw the news too. James texted me at 9 p.m. Marcus just posted on Facebook that he's entering rehab immediately. Convenient timing. The title company called the next morning. They were freezing all accounts associated with Victoria's transactions and conducting an internal audit. The escrow officer's voice was shaky. Her job was on the line for missing the fraud. Dorothy summed it up best when she called that night. 40 years building a reputation, destroyed in 48 hours. By week's end, 3 agencies had opened investigations, 6 families had joined the complaint, and Victoria's name was mud in every real estate circle from here to California. Within 2 weeks, the full scope of the fraud became clear. Morrison, trying to reduce his sentence, had turned over everything: emails, texts, payment records, even recordings of Marcus discussing which families to target. The elderly Nguyen couple barely spoke English, Investigator Park told me during a follow-up interview. Your sister specifically chose them because they'd be less likely to understand the documents or fight back. The investigation revealed 4 more victims we hadn't known about. Total fraud amount: over $3 million in stolen estate assets. The FBI did get involved, just as Robert Smith had predicted. Marcus and Victoria officially separated. He'd checked into a rehab facility, claiming gambling addiction as a disease, trying to position himself as a victim too. But the recordings Morrison provided showed Marcus was fully complicit, even suggesting which notary would be flexible with signatures. Their kids went to live with Marcus's parents in Oregon. I heard from Aunt Dorothy that Victoria had to explain to her 12-year-old why they couldn't go home, why Mommy couldn't work anymore, why Daddy was sick. The fake notary wasn't Morrison's first crime, it turned out. He'd been running similar schemes in 2 other states. The investigation expanded nationally. He was looking at 15 to 20 years. Victoria's real estate agency dropped her immediately, then issued a public statement distancing themselves from her crimes. Her photo was removed from every bus bench and billboard within days. Other real estate agents started calling me, sharing suspicious transactions they'd noticed but hadn't reported. The State Real Estate Commission announced a full audit of estate sales going back 5 years. "Your sister didn't invent this scheme," Park told me, "but she perfected it. And she got greedy. That's always how they get caught. They get greedy and sloppy." 3 weeks after the confrontation, Judge Martinez issued her ruling. I sat in the courtroom as she read it aloud, her voice carrying absolute authority. The court finds that the purported sale of the property at 4827 Maple Street was fraudulent and void ab initio, void from the beginning. The forged signature of Isabella Sullivan, notarized by Bradley Morrison in conspiracy with Victoria Sullivan Hayes, constitutes criminal fraud. She looked directly at me. "The title is hereby returned to the estate, with Isabella Sullivan appointed as successor executor, replacing Victoria Sullivan Hayes, who is permanently barred from serving in any fiduciary capacity." The gavel came down. The house was saved. Outside the courthouse, the California buyer's attorney approached me. "My clients wanted me to tell you they're sorry for any distress this caused. They had no idea." "They're victims, too," I said. "Victoria fooled all of us." That afternoon, I drove to the house, our house, with the new keys. The lock had been changed as a precaution. I stood in Mom's kitchen, her lavender still blooming outside the window, and cried for the first time since this all began. James met me there an hour later. "It's really over? The criminal case is just beginning, but the house is safe." We walked through each room, remembering. Dad's workshop still smelled like sawdust. The height marks on the doorframes still tracked our growth. Victoria's marks were there too, a reminder of who she used to be. "What will you do with it?" James asked. "Keep it in the family. Make it a gathering place, like Mom wanted." I touched the kitchen counter where Mom had rolled out countless pie crusts. "Maybe run it as a vacation rental part-time to cover maintenance, but it stays ours." The judge's ruling was unambiguous, I said. Fraudulent and void. The first family gathering without Victoria was Thanksgiving, 2 months after the confrontation. I hosted it at the house, Mom's house, now legally protected from any future fraud. James arrived early to help cook, something he'd never done when Mom was alive. "I should have listened to you from the start," he said while peeling potatoes. "When you said something felt wrong, I thought it was just grief talking. Victoria was convincing. She fooled everyone. Not you. Only because I knew about signatures and notarization. Otherwise, I might have believed her too." Aunt Dorothy brought Mom's china, which she'd been storing. "Your mother would be proud of you, Isabella. You fought for what was right, even when it meant standing alone." As family arrived, there was an obvious absence. Victoria's children were there. Marcus's parents brought them down from Oregon, but they looked lost. I made sure to give them extra attention, letting them know they were still loved, still part of the family. "Aunt Isabella," Victoria's daughter Sophie asked quietly, "why isn't Mom here?" "Your mom made some mistakes," I said gently. "She needs time to fix them. But that doesn't change how much we all love you." The extended family rallied around the children. Cousins included them in games. Aunts and uncles made sure they felt welcome. We couldn't undo their parents' choices, but we could show them family meant more than money. During dinner, Uncle Robert proposed a toast. "To Isabella, for saving our family home, and to learning that documents matter, but family matters more. To accountability with compassion," Dorothy added. James raised his glass. "To Mom and Dad, who taught us right from wrong, even if some of us forgot the lesson. We drank, the empty chairs at the table a reminder of choices and consequences. Victoria's sentencing came 6 months after the investigation began. I attended, not out of vengeance, but because I needed to see it through. She looked smaller in the courtroom, her designer clothes replaced with a conservative black suit from Target. Her attorney had coached her well. She appeared remorseful, broken, humbled. The prosecutor laid out the scope. 6 families defrauded, over $3 million in attempted theft, conspiracy with Morrison spanning 18 months. The evidence was overwhelming. When Victoria spoke, her voice was barely audible. I take full responsibility. I betrayed my family's trust, my professional ethics, and the law. I'm deeply sorry for the pain I've caused. The judge wasn't moved by her tears. Mrs. Sullivan Hayes, you targeted vulnerable families during their grief. You used your position as a trusted family member and professional to commit systematic fraud. This wasn't a momentary lapse. It was a calculated scheme. The sentence: 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service, full restitution to all victims, and permanent loss of her real estate license. She avoided jail only because she'd pled guilty and had no prior record. Additionally, the judge continued, you're barred from serving in any fiduciary capacity, handling estate matters, or working in financial services. Marcus got 2 years probation and mandatory gambling addiction treatment. His lighter sentence reflected his cooperation with prosecutors, though everyone knew he'd thrown Victoria under the bus to save himself. Outside the courthouse, Victoria approached me one last time. I know you'll never forgive me. Forgiveness takes time, I said. But I hope you use this chance to rebuild better. My kids won't even talk to me. Give them time too. Children can forgive if you show real change. She walked away, a woman who'd lost everything for money that was already gone. 1 year later, I stood in Mom's garden, now thriving under my care. The lavender had spread, filling the air with the scent that always reminded me of her. I'd moved into the house 6 months ago, leaving my tiny apartment for the space where our family's memories lived. The house had become what Mom always wanted, a gathering place. Every Sunday, family members dropped by for coffee and conversation. James brought his kids to play in the same backyard where we'd grown up. Dorothy held her book club in the living room where Mom once hosted holiday parties. I'd kept everything that mattered. Dad's workshop remained untouched, his tools still arranged exactly as he'd left them. The height marks on the kitchen doorframe were preserved under a clear protective coating. Mom's recipe box sat on the counter, its cards splattered with decades of use. But I'd also made it mine. My notary office occupied the spare bedroom, clients coming to the house where I'd learned the importance of authentic signatures. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Victoria's children visited monthly, their grandparents driving them down from Oregon. Sophie had started calling again, tentative conversations about school and friends. Her brother remained angry, but Dorothy said that would pass with time. Every Thanksgiving we gather in Mom's kitchen, I told a client who'd asked about the family photos covering the walls. The whole family comes. That must be nice, she said, signing her documents with careful precision. It is, I agreed, notarizing her signature with my official seal. Though there's always one empty chair, choices have consequences. The client nodded, not needing to know more. The house stood as testimony to both preservation and loss, to fighting for what matters and accepting what can't be undone. Looking back now, I realize being called emotional and unrealistic wasn't the insult Victoria intended. Yes, I was emotional about our family home. Yes, it was unrealistic to think everyone shared my values. But those emotions led me to fight when everyone else would have given in. Trust, but verify. That's what my 12 years as a notary taught me, but I never thought I'd need to apply it to family. Now I know better. Love doesn't mean blind faith. Real love includes accountability. Documentation matters. One forged signature nearly cost us everything. But knowing the law, keeping records, and standing firm saved not just our house, but 6 other families from fraud. Being called emotional doesn't mean you're wrong. Sometimes it means you're the only one who remembers what really matters. And sometimes that's exactly what your family needs. Someone who won't let go, won't give in, and won't let them get away with it. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that standing up for yourself isn't selfish, it's necessary. What would you have done in my situation? Let me know in the comments. And if you want more stories about setting boundaries and finding justice, subscribe and hit the bell. Remember, document everything, trust your instincts, and never let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting what's yours.